for letting this happen. I want to thank my partner, Liz Erkenswick, who allowed me to follow my dream. I want to thank my mentor, Rick Malter, who taught me about minerals and how they really work in the body. But I especially want to thank Carolyn Dean, who is here. She's the one that turned me on to magnesium. And what will probably surprise you during the course of this talk is I first read her book in July of last year. Since that time, I've read 18 other books and 300 scientific articles about magnesium. What you probably don't know is that behind every obsession is a magnesium deficiency. So I'm screwed. But I especially want to thank my sponsor, Jigsaw Health. We've connected, and I'm actually working with several companies that are related to magnesium, but they in particular allowed me to be here today, and I want to thank them for that. But right now, I feel like my whole life has been preparing me for this moment. And it's a very special experience for me to go through this. For those of you who are familiar with the movie Chariots of Fire, it's a very poignant scene when Harold Abrams is facing the 100-yard dash. And he realizes he has 10 seconds to prove himself. That's exactly how I feel. But I should relax because I've got 45 minutes to try to prove myself. But trust me, by the time we get done with this material, you all are going to feel like you've run a 100-yard dash. We have a lot of ground to cover. Appreciate your coming. Feel free to ask questions. There will be some material here that is really going to chafe you. It's really going to fly in the face of what you know to be true. But what I've done is something very novel. I've gone into the research back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s before Big Pharma took control of research. And I know the truth now. It's not a belief system, it's the truth. So we'll talk more about that. Linus Pauling, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, said it best: you can trace every sickness to a mineral deficiency. And I think he's absolutely right. My deficiency of choice is magnesium. And I think by the time we finish this talk, you're going to walk away with a very different perspective about how important it is. Now, either he is really smart or really lucky, but he's the only person on the planet who's ever gotten 2 unshared Nobel Prizes. I think he's a pretty smart guy. All right, so who am I? I'm a recovering hospital exec who's seen the light, spent 32 years in the hospital community, helping them grow. And I was really good at it as both an executive and as a hospital consultant. So basically what I'm doing now is paying off a karmic debt. So thank you for taking the time to hear what I have to say. I have a very strong opinion about what it takes to be and stay healthy. I also teach a course at UIC, University of Illinois in Chicago, and my email address is healthczar at UIC. Great light athlete. For those of you who haven't run a marathon yet, you've got to do it. It's a lot easier. I started my first one when I was 50. Try to do it when you're younger. It's a whole lot easier. Burned up a prodigious amount of magnesium doing it. But what really woke me up in part was jumping out of an airplane at 3 miles high. If you haven't done that, I was inspired by the movie The Bucket List. It's incredible. And when you're dropping at 185 feet per second, you see the world very differently. But what I particularly delight in doing is separating fact from fiction, particularly as it relates to history and nutrition. And there's a lot of fiction out there that you think is fact. But what I'm really going to focus on today is, this is basically my message. You have been misled, and you have been misfed. And I can prove it. The only thing I'm going to ask of you is don't shoot the messenger. Legally, I'm not allowed to prescribe anything, unlike Carolyn and other physicians that might be in the audience. What I can legally tell you about is the books I've read. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. There are 5 in particular that shaped my thinking beyond Carolyn's book. And by the way, we're going to have a little raffle. And so pass your business cards into the center. And then Carolyn Dean is actually going to pick out the winner and get a free copy of this book. So this book will change your life just as it changed mine. But let me talk about 5 other books that shaped my thinking. Lies My Teacher Told Me. If you haven't read it, it's amazing. What you find out is that Woodrow Wilson was a white supremacist. Counterclockwise by Ellen Langer. You find out that aging is actually a social phenomenon, not so much a biological phenomenon. Good Calories, Bad Calories. Gary Toms is actually speaking at the IIN conference just down the street. An amazing book. And basically, our diet is backwards. Because everyone's looking up there and saying, wow, I really like that piece of toast. I'm afraid of that butter. Good Calories, Bad Calories. Then Dr. Weston A. Price's book, which is a phenomenal book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, where he was on a quest for 20 years to find communities that had perfect teeth. This was back in the 20s and 30s. And he found 14 communities. And how many of them do you think were vegetarian? 0. That's a topic for another speech. And then magnesium deficiency and the pathogenesis of disease. Mildred Seelig is, in fact, the world's expert, or was prior to her death, the world's expert on magnesium. I don't know how many articles and books she wrote, but she was the absolute reigning champ. But this book is 600 pages of, gee, I didn't know that. Wow, I had no idea. So this is the background of my thinking. Think of me as, yes?
What was that last book called?
Magnesium deficiency in the pathogenesis of disease. It is not for the faint of heart. By Mildred Seelig. Okay, how many have seen the movie Wizard of Oz? Okay, the very critical scene when Toto pulls back the curtain to reveal that the mighty Oz, is nothing more than a snake oil salesman spinning dials. Well, think of me as Toto. Okay, and I'm going to pull back the curtain on the healthcare industry. All right? And by the end of the talk, I want you begging for magnesium. And please be sure to stop by booth 212, which is sponsored by Jigsaw Health. I've got a lot of good information and some samples there for you. But I want you begging for magnesium by the end of this talk. Okay. This was the image that ruled the world for thousands of years. Is the Earth flat? No. We know that it's round, right? Absolutely. But it turns out that Pythagoras proved that it was round in 522 BC. How long do you think it was before the common man actually believed that the Earth was round? It wasn't until Magellan's ship came back a year after his death, and then finally people said, maybe there's something to this. Maybe the world is in fact round. But what I want to propose to you is that we don't have 2,000 years to figure this out about magnesium. We don't even have 2,000 days, because that's 5.5 years. The fastest way to gain health freedom, and I think that's why everyone is here, is to get lots of magnesium into your body. And I will repeat that message at least 3 more times. But what I'm about to share with you is very much akin to me telling you that Santa Claus is just an idea, that your parents were in fact fallible, and that priests, politicians, and police don't really have your best interests at heart. Okay? This is an ad from 1948. This is what you call the social construction of reality. And we believed it. If our doctor told us to jump off a cliff, we would have done it. Those times are over. But unfortunately, this concept of believing the simple lie has been with us for millennia. And Lao Tzu was the first person recorded to have said that very statement. It's much easier to believe a simple lie than the complex truth. So here's some examples of the simple lie, or I like to call it the mythology that's guiding medicine and nutrition in America. The cholesterol myth. Do flies cause garbage? No. They're attracted to garbage, right? Okay. All right. Saturated fat myth. If eating a low-fat diet was good for you, why is 2/3 of America overweight and half of those people obese? Okay? You need saturated fat to move minerals around your body. You need saturated fat to put minerals into your bone. The salt myth. I love this, because we're told we're eating way too much salt. Turns out that we're eating 1/3 of the salt that our ancestors did before refrigeration. It's just we're eating the wrong kind of salt. We need to have a broad spectrum salt, like salt that you get from the ocean. The calcium myth. Everyone loves calcium. Everyone loves to take calcium carbonate. Do you know what calcium carbonate is? Chalk. Is there any wonder why people's bones are breaking? You take a piece of chalk and drop it on the ground, it shatters. Take the same size piece of ivory and drop it on the ground, and it bounces. What's inside ivory? Magnesium and potassium. Vitamin D myth, we'll come back to that because this is really going to set you on fire. The sugar myth. I love sugar. Who doesn't love sugar? In George Washington's day, the average colonial ate 3 pounds of sugar a year. And it was real sugar. It came from sugar cane. We're eating 73 times that amount today. Over 220 pounds of sugar per person per year. I don't eat a lot. So someone in this audience is pounding down 400 pounds of sugar a year. The mercury myth. If I had a mercury halogen light bulb and dropped it on the ground right now, everyone would need to vacate, and a hazmat team would have to come in here, and it would be vacant for 4 days. But yet, we put it in our vaccines, and we put it in our mouth. And what they've discovered is that, in fact, mercury amalgams are fine. You know where the research was done that they were fine? They were done on cadavers. So it turns out that mercury is actually okay as long as you don't chew and don't drink hot liquids. And then the absolute all-time favorite, the fluoride myth. Oh, it's good for our teeth. Well, Dr. Kennedy did a great job yesterday talking about this. It turns out that when you go into the actual research from the Manhattan Project, it takes hydrofluoric acid to enrich uranium. That's how we made the atomic bomb. Then we had to get rid of all this waste product, all this fluoride waste product. So they did a study with the workers who were working with the hydrofluoric acid. And the write-up back in 1948 said, workers have fewer cavities. Then when you go to the actual data 50 years later with the Freedom of Information Act, you find out workers have no teeth. Okay, so here's the scorecard. The medical and nutritional establishment has been wrong, 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 and they've been quiet, quiet, quiet. Aren't you a little curious? I mean, what is it about this obsession with vitamin D all of a sudden? Why do people think that this is a safe thing to do? Vitamin D is the oldest hormone on this planet. The oldest hormone on this planet. We've existed for 3.5 million years without vitamin D. And now suddenly, people can't think of going a day without 10,000, 20,000 units of vitamin D. Well, it's a hormone. It is a hormone. It's not a vitamin. So when the doctor does the blood test to test your hormone level, you got to think, let me think how a hormone works. It communicates with target cells. The target cells in this case happen to be your colon. And what the hormone is saying, we need more calcium in the blood. Guess what the body is saying? I got too much calcium, man. That's why the hormone's low. So let me just put it in another perspective. I've had the opportunity to talk to some of the leading experts on magnesium around the world. Guess how many of them take vitamin D on a daily basis? 0. One of them was kind enough to share with me the fact that, in fact, this is a major play by the pharmaceutical industry, yet another chance to mislead and misfeed us, and they're going to patent vitamin D. Okay? Now, the little trick that I'll tell you is if you're absolutely obsessed with vitamin D and you just can't live without it, for heaven's sakes, take lots of magnesium. Now, this is a trick question. Guess what the rate-limiting variable is to convert storage vitamin D, which is what the blood test is about, to active vitamin D, which does all these glorious things that they write up in the research. Magnesium. Thank you. You can't convert it without magnesium. Has your doctor ever told you that? No. Yes? Okay. So we have, in fact, been misled and misfed. We all know that calcium is good for strong bones, right? How many people know this? Absolutely. It's also good for strong bottom lines. Now think about this. Think about this. When do you go see your doctor? When you don't feel well. Okay. How does your doctor make a living? I'm just telling you, how does a doctor make a living? It's very chafing to hear this. I worked in the industry for 32 years. I never saw it that way. They make their living when you are sick. They make your living when they keep you sick. It's terrible to even think it. It's horrible to say it. And then, when the medication that they give you doesn't make you better, what do they say? You're getting older. What do you expect? And that's part of the social construction of reality. And they get you to buy into it. I am getting older. Well, yeah, of course I'm going to fall apart. Well, here's something you may not know. There's a team of researchers in Japan that have been studying aging. And what they've discovered is that there are 15 markers for aging. 15 markers for aging. How many of them are magnesium dependent? 15. So it turns out that magnesium status is, in fact, the biological clock. And I work with hair analysis. And my mentor, Rick Malter, is a clinical psychologist who's worked with hair analysis for 35 years and has a sterling record of helping people get rid of their Prozac deficiencies. And there is not one American that either one of us has met that isn't magnesium deficient. So then we're all aging. We're all much more susceptible to disease. All right. Calcium is attracted to an acidic environment. If you heard Sherry Brush's talk yesterday, you understand what that's about. Acid is not a good thing. Calcium activates the sympathetic nervous system. That is, in fact, the fight or flight system. That is, in fact, the mechanism for disease. Unregulated calcium causes inflammation. Not a good thing. Unregulated? I've never heard of unregulated calcium. Well, inflammation is the basis of all disease. I think that's very well established now in the research. When it makes it to Time magazine, you can pretty much accept it. It's a fact. And that was back in the 80s when they made that assertion. But here's something you may not know. Magnesium regulates calcium, period. If you get nothing out of this talk but that, magnesium regulates calcium. How does it do it? There are 3 hormones that control the amount of calcium in your body. Parathyroid hormone, calcitonin, and vitamin D. And all 3 are magnesium dependent. So, the more calcium, the less magnesium, the better for business. That's the healthcare business model. It's pretty cool, actually. You don't have to believe me. And this, by the way, this presentation is going to be up on my website first of next week, and you can sit and study the citations to your leisure. I don't want you stressing out about, oh my gosh, I got to get those down. Just relax and enjoy the show. But the citations are there. And if you have any questions, by all means, give me a call. If you have any. This is one of my favorite articles of all time. It's published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, and it's telling us how the potentially, I love the word potentially, the potentially beneficial roles for calcium, and then going to list 11 different diseases that it supposedly helps, like breast cancer. I love that. Colon cancer, both of which have now been established as it's brought on by an excess amount of calcium to magnesium in the body. Kidney stones, would you ever give someone with a kidney stone calcium? No, of course not. But what's fabulous about this study is there are 222 citations in this study. That's a lot of citations. Now, I took the whole article, copied it, and put it into Word so that I could search for all the different ways that it refers to magnesium in the article. How many references are there to magnesium in this article? 0. And it probably wouldn't surprise you. Guess who paid for the study? Yes, the cow industry. Okay. We just can't seem to get enough. My apologies to the women in the audience who find this wildly offensive, but we just can't seem to get enough in America. But I want to make sure you understand the cow-mag ratio. Anyone familiar with that ratio, the cow-mag ratio? Okay, it's in fact what runs your body. It's in fact what determines whether you're going to get sick or not. And we in fact are designed for a 1-to-1 ratio. We're designed for a 1-to-1 ratio, which is why carrots are so good. But let's go into the dairy scene. Milk, and I love milk. I love real milk. If you're going to drink milk, drink the real deal, okay? No, it's not real. It's real. It's real. It's the way Mother Nature intended it. 7-to-1 ratio of calcium to magnesium. Cheese. Who doesn't love cheese? It's one of the great addictions of America. 26-to-1. OJ. Fortified OJ, of course. 27-to-1. And then for those of you who are struggling with your proton pump inhibitors, 300-to-1 ratio with Tums. It's like an atom bomb going off inside your body. It is absolutely the worst thing you could possibly do. You don't have too much stomach acid. You don't have enough. That's right. That's the problem. It's not for this talk. Okay. A healthy cell, lots and lots of magnesium. An unhealthy cell, lots and lots of calcium. That's what makes the cell work. Lots and lots of magnesium. Heikki Karppainen was a physician in Finland. If you want to have a heart attack, and I'm actually writing a book called Let's Get Sick. I'm teaching Americans how to get sick. And one of the chapters is, let's make a heart attack. Don't have a heart attack. Make a heart attack if you're going to do it. And if you're going to make a heart attack, you want to go to Finland, and where you really want to go is to North Karelia. That is the very epicenter for heart disease in the world, because they in fact have the highest ratio of calcium to magnesium. Okay? That's how important the cow-mag ratio is. And what Dr. Karppainen did was plot these countries along the axis of calcium and magnesium. And in fact, he was able to establish a real clarity about why is cardiac heart disease continuing to escalate unabated. Andrew Rosenroth, another one of my my champions and part of the think tank that I work with, did a study a number of years ago, published in Magnesium Research, looking at this very issue of dietary magnesium versus dietary calcium. And again, it just reinforces the point, we can't get enough calcium. The most frightening part about this study is that she doesn't even in any way address supplementing with calcium. So already there's an outrageous cal-mag ratio. And again, if you get past 2-to-1 in your body, not a good thing. We actually evolved from the sea. That's what they tell us anyway. And that the placenta is supposed to be like seawater. Well, the ratio of calcium to magnesium is 1 part calcium to 5 parts magnesium. So why do we think if we reverse that, that would be healthy? It's absolutely not healthy. There's a book written by a physician in Anchorage, Alaska, Robert Thompson, a wonderful book. He exposes this whole issue about the calcium line. As you go through his cascade, it will make your jaw drop. You'll say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. He got a lot of his ideas from Dr. Abraham, who actually practices here in Torrance, California, one of the most courageous researchers on the planet, and basically called this whole calcium controversy. He called it a calcium controversy, but it's also a great myth. And then it turns out that Dr. Dollar from the Netherlands in 1960 clearly established that magnesium deficiency was what was behind osteoporosis. Very well established in 1960. But again, who knew? We were misled, and we were misfed. Okay, so here's proof that excess calcium, unregulated calcium, insufficient magnesium is good for business. We have a doubling of the obesity rate in a 20-year period. We have a tripling of the diabetes rate. We have a quadrupling of inpatient hospitalization admission rate. And despite what you hear about coronary heart deaths are declining, the disease continues to grow at 80% over a 20-year period. What we were told is that it is now indisputable that lowering cholesterol with diet and with medication is going to stop this. No, not even close. What got me into this field of wellness and health coaching was this study. It was the last study I did before I left the wacky world of consulting. And it was looking at where healthcare was going to be in 2010 and then project out to 2025. I was so terrified, I said, I can no longer stay on the sidelines. I've got to help save some starfish. And that's what took me over the top. So it turns out that calcium and magnesium are in fact antagonists. And I think one of the great gifts of Carolyn Dean's book is that she really makes sure you understand what that means. It's a beautiful description, and just all of the different facets that go into that, and just the way she explores it was very powerful for me, and I think it would be the same for you. But what you need to understand is that when you don't have magnesium, your world gets very flat and very hard. And we're going to take a look at that in just a minute. All right. Anybody dealing with stress? Okay. I'm not dealing with stress. Well, guess what stress is linked to? Disease. It's very tightly wound. Again, you don't have to believe me. Hans Selye, a Canadian endocrinologist, studied this very, very carefully. And his book called Calciphylaxis, it's the most intimidating book I've ever read. It's 500 pages of the most outrageous pictures of animals that have been exposed to stress and what it does to their body. And it's an amazing book. I'm not sure I would encourage you to read it, but if you're really curious, well, go ahead and read it. So what I got here are just a sampling of different conditions that people are struggling with: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, thyroid dysfunction. I love thyroid dysfunction. 98 million Americans are taking Synthroid. A third of our country is taking Synthroid. Think there might be something behind that? Depression, anxiety attacks, low libido, arthritis, diabetes, osteopenia or osteoporosis, chronic pain. Who is suffering from any one of those conditions? Okay, so most of the folks are here. Now, here's a trick question. Yes?
Sorry, can you repeat that book one more time? The book with the other pages?
Oh, calciphylaxis.
Thank you.
Yeah. Don't ask me to spell it, though. Okay, here's the trick question. Yes?
What was the name of Carol's disease?
The Magnesium Miracle. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Wonderful, wonderful book. All right, trick question. What is the common origin for these 10 conditions that are up on the screen? Magnesium deficiency. And most of the time when I'm talking to people, they go, huh? Mag what? But what we're going to do is we're going to explore the world of magnesium deficiency in a way that you've never seen it before. Does anybody know what the word doctor means in Latin? Teacher. You must be a doctor. Okay. He's been answering all the questions, like, very quietly, but make sure I heard him. But I'm going to teach you something that you can go back and teach to your doctor. Because he or she apparently does not know this. Because this is high school physiology. Okay? All right. So we know that stress causes disease, causes heart disease. We know that. I focus on heart disease because it's something that we can all relate to, for better or for worse. But I come from a long line of, my middle name is Matthews. I wish it was Magnesium, but it's not. But all people, and I descend from, and that's the family that I really relate to physically and emotionally, and they all died of heart attacks. My mother, her father, and his father. So, pretty aware of heart disease. So we know that stress causes heart disease. Well, actually, now the research is telling us that stress causes metabolic syndrome. You probably have heard of that. You've got the issue of obesity, insulin resistance, low cholesterol, or low HDL cholesterol, hypertension, and high triglycerides. The wooga of heart disease is metabolic syndrome. Well, it also turns out that stress causes what's called endothelial dysfunction. The endothelial cells are one layer thick inside your artery, and when they're not happy, your heart's not happy. And the endothelium gets stressed out. Now, what do you think causes the stress? At the social level, at the organ level, at the metabolic level, and at the cellular level? What do you think causes the stress? Magnesium deficiency. And again, you don't have to believe me. It's very well established in the research. I've got 75 articles just on magnesium deficiency and heart disease alone. But let's take a deeper dive into the endothelial cell. And you've probably heard about, maybe you've heard about plaque, maybe you've heard about oxidized cholesterol. They never tell you what causes oxidation of cholesterol. When you have magnesium deficiency, you get oxidized cholesterol. But it turns out that, in fact, there are 10 mechanisms inside the endothelium that react to magnesium deficiency. Again, you don't have to take my word. I have 55 citations on this one mechanism alone. And I thought I would share one with you. This is from just a few weeks ago. It got published a few weeks ago. And basically what it's saying is, gee, what a surprise. Magnesium deficiency might be the problem. And maybe it would be a good idea to correct the magnesium homeostasis. Something that, as long ago as 1957, Dr. Joseph Vitale at Harvard was saying to his peers. So it makes perfect sense why they would go after cholesterol, right? Why did they not go after cholesterol? Why did they go after cholesterol and not go after magnesium? You can't patent magnesium. You can't make any money on it. You can follow the money trail. All right, let's take it down another level. Now let's go inside the cell. And let's talk about what's happening as soon as the stress starts. You have what's called inflammation. Inflammation is actually our friend. It's the first stage of healing, believe it or not. But it's unresolved inflammation or chronic inflammation that becomes a problem. And then it turns into oxidation. Anybody know, this is particularly for the guys nowadays, who relates to mag wheels? Right? Why are mag wheels special? They're shiny, right? Why are they shiny? They don't rust. Why don't they rust? Because they're made of magnesium. So what we need to do is convert, we have to go from mag wheels to mag cells. And magnesium hangs out inside the cell. You need lots and lots of magnesium. There are a whole bunch of cofactors. B6 is very, very important to make sure it gets inside the cell. You need boron to make sure it stays inside the cell. But you need the basic mineral in order for it to work. And then if oxidation doesn't get resolved, guess what? You turn to cement. Or your doctor would call it multiple sclerosis, cataracts, arthritis, kidney stones. Those are all fancy names for calcification, or we would call it chalk. Again, all brought to us by magnesium deficiency. So that's at the cellular level. Let's take it down another step. I just discovered this 2 weeks ago. Your doctor's going to love this. You've got to make sure that your doctor knows about this because this is so cool. It turns out, at the very precise nanosecond of stress, there's a gene called the NRF2 gene. It gets really agitated. And it creates what's called heat stress. And that heat stress creates called heat stress proteins. And there are 3 of them. HSP60, HSP70, and HSP90. And they are triggered by magnesium deficiency. Now we're inside the gene. Now, I actually found a picture of a quark. And it turns out the quarks go up and down, which is, there's got to be stress involved there, but I didn't think you'd believe that. But the point is, even from societal stress, which we know as anxiety, all the way down to a genetic level, if you don't have magnesium, you're toast. Magnesium eliminates stress. That's its job. It eliminates stress in your body. It is so essential to our daily life. And just one more point, and then we'll get a little deeper into the magnesium. Once you understand that what we've done is understood stress within heart disease, well, now you can step back, and in fact, it turns out it's this concept of free radical oxidative stress relates to every disease we know. Every disease. And as I just alluded to a minute ago, every specialty has a name for it. But it's all the same mechanism. It's all inflammation, oxidation, calcification. Or if you want to use another way to describe it, heat produces rust, produces cement. And what drives it? Magnesium deficiency. And I've got 30 articles around this mechanism alone. And you're thinking, hey, come on, it can't be that simple. It's got to be more complicated. My doctor, why did my doctor go to medical school and do all this excess training if it was that simple? But I can assure you that societal stress leads to organ stress, leads to metabolic, leads to cellular, leads to genetic. And when the magnesium drops, that's what triggers this whole disease process. So here's an example of some of the resistance to simplicity, because I've talked to doctors all over the country about this. A bit of a bone, like a dog with a bone on this. Turns out it's just not a popular drug these days. That was a leading plastic surgeon at a top 10 medical school in the Chicago area. Magnesium, that's voodoo medicine. A leading physician in the New Orleans area. I practice evidence-based medicine, not folk medicine. This is a leading internist in Baltimore. You know, I don't use it that much in the ER. A leading ER physician in the Chicago area. Then I sought out an EMT. I thought, well, surely an EMT would use magnesium, right? This is going to blow your mind. I'm not allowed to use it. I am not allowed to use it. In fact, what this person told me is he has a checklist of 10 drugs that he's allowed to use, and magnesium is 11. It's the dead last. And then, I'm not sure you all are following the saga of Leroy, New York, where there are 19 people who come up with this Tourette's-like syndrome. Okay. I was watching the YouTube of it. Dr. Jennifer McBride is on the Today Show saying, we're really confused by this. We don't understand it. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I called up the Dent Neurological Institute, and I asked to speak to Dr. McBride. Well, you can imagine she wasn't available. So I said, who runs the place? They said, well, Dr. So-and-so. I said, well, put him on. And they did. So here's my opening volley to this physician. I said, what part of magnesium deficiency do you not understand? And this is what he said. What do you mean, magnesium deficiency? So I had to school him about how magnesium deficiency and B6 deficiency are classic precursors to Tourette's syndrome. And then sent him the article. But then I went one step farther. I called up the mayor, George Brady, of Leroy, New York. And I said, Mr. Brady, I've got 2 questions that I'm going to make sure you ask the physicians going forward. 1, what are these people's magnesium status as measured by either the magnesium RBC or by an ionized magnesium test? And secondly, what are you doing to infuse IV therapy into these people? He called me the other day to thank me for your conversation. Magnesium, let me put it on a scale that you really can understand this. Would you think about going a day without air? Would you think about going a day without water? Guess what? Magnesium is right there. It's at that level of importance to your body. And what most of you, how many of you are taking some sort of magnesium right now? Okay, that's good. That's very good. I would be willing to posit that you are either taking a magnesium oxide, which your body can't absorb because you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, or you're taking a citrate form, which is a wonderful product, but again, you have bowel tolerance issues. What I'm experiencing in my nascent journey as a wellness coach is people have a magnesium desert. Their body is bone dry. And you need a pipeline to bring this in. And what you need to do, and I'm going to jump to the end to make sure we get through this, but what you need to do is make sure that you're tapping into every conceivable source of magnesium. And I'm going to introduce you to 5 of the 12 that we use in our practice. Don't think that if you're taking a supplement that has magnesium that you've got your bases covered, because guess what? Chances are very good that your supplement has fluoride in it. Why do I know that? Because most supplements use municipal water. And 72% of municipal water systems have fluoride. All right. I will leave you with this message here, and then I'll jump to what I think is a prescription. Medicine, as we know it, is a sophisticated, complicated, intimidating elephant skin over a magnesium-deficient mouse. Ladies and gentlemen, this is modern medicine. This is allopathic medicine at its worst. This is you and me. If we get the magnesium back in our body, guess what we don't need anymore? And guess what? Just like the elephant, what are elephants most afraid of? Mice. And this is true. And this is true of allopathic physicians too. They're terrified of magnesium. And if anyone is planning to have surgery or has recently had surgery, you are in fact magnesium deficient because they use fluoridated anesthesia now. It's dramatically changed in the last 30 years. You are bone dry, I guarantee it. So occasionally you stumble upon the truth, you dust yourself off and go about your business. Churchill also said that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. You can choose whether to believe what I'm saying or not. Again, I would encourage you to go to the website to look at the details. But I am shocked by what I now know. I'm embarrassed by what I now know. We're not going to have a chance to talk about this in detail, but just know that magnesium controls the electrolytes. This is what runs your body. And if you want to activate your parasympathetic system, which is what heals you, you want lots of calcium and magnesium in your diet. Excuse me. Thank you. Potassium. Man, I come all this way and I screw it up. I was doing so great, too. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Right, that's exactly what I was doing. Yes, indeed. That's right. Yes. And those of you who have been listening, that's great. All right. This is what turns the parasympathetic. This is called the ancestral diet. Please, go see the folks at Weston A. Price to learn about the ancestral diet. This is what the standard American diet is all about. It's active. The sympathetic nervous system is activated by calcium, and the parasympathetic is inhibited by sodium. It's the perfect prescription to keep you sick. It doesn't get any better than that. All right. It's all about energy and enzymes. That's what magnesium does so much stuff, it's ridiculous to talk about what it does, to try to boil it down. But for those of you who are most interested in your health freedom, you can't make glutathione without magnesium. The cholesterol that everyone's so worried about, if there's no magnesium, the HMG coenzyme 8 reductase just runs all day long making cholesterol. Why is it making cholesterol? Because you're stressed out and you need the stress hormones. But we'll talk about that later. For those of you who worry about pesticide residue and fluoride toxicity, you need tons of magnesium to run your detox pathways. What runs the Krebs cycle, which gives you energy? It's magnesium. It's magnesium dependent. For every molecule of glucose that you ingest, you need 28 molecules of magnesium to run it, to work it. And as we've talked about, you can't make active vitamin D without magnesium. I'm going to jump ahead. That's how magnesium gets drained, our lifestyle. And of all of the factors that are listed here, that is the biggest drain in the body. The worry, the stress, the fear, the anxiety. The body just dumps magnesium. Well, if it's so dire, why haven't my friends and family told me? We're all waiting for Magellan's ship to come in. My trainer, too focused on calories in and out. My grocer, are you kidding? The food is controlled by 5 firms. My physician, at best they get 1 hour of nutrition, and they're too lost in prescriptions. My public health department, they're still stuck in the germ theory. Germ theory was invented in 1860. Think it might have evolved since then. On your station, they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. In my government, calcium is too good for the GMP. Ladies and gentlemen, 40% of our GMP goes to doctors, hospitals, drugs, and toxic food. 40% of our GMP. I'm not going to get into this. Just know this is one of my favorites. In Andrew Rosenoff's and Mildred Selig's book called The Magnesium Factor, they introduced us to the fact that if you take LDL, the cholesterol that everyone is so terrified of, and you add magnesium, guess what it turns into? HDL. But don't tell your doctor, it'll really freak them out. But we have been misled, we have been misfed. First thing in the morning, take your pH. Urine pH in the morning, if it's below 6, you need more magnesium. If you want to take control of your health, take your pH every morning and find out how acidic you are. And magnesium is the most alkalizing metal on earth. It's what the body turns to neutralize. Have you ever heard of bufferin? What do you think bufferin's made of? Aspirin plus magnesium. That's why it's called buffer. The buffer was in the aspirin. This concept was developed by Russell Jaffe, one of the bright lights on the planet. Would strongly encourage you to do this. That's all I have to do? Are you kidding me? That's all? Yeah, that's all you have to do. So here's the 5-step plan. Everybody says, what kind of magnesium should I take? The first thing I say is, cut your stress. That's where you got to start. Heal your gut. Examine the importance of the ancestral diet. Build your parasympathetic tone. And please, if you do nothing else, express gratitude each and every day for all that you have. Because gratitude activates the parasympathetic nervous system faster than any drug on earth. Express gratitude. And then restore Maggie daily. Water and mineral drops. You can't beat it. My partner, the first thing she does when she's testing people's strength is she puts mineral drops in their pocket, and their arms get really strong, really fast. It's amazing. We work with a company, Val Anderson's here from Mineral Resources International. They're making a great, amazing product. They've been doing it for 60 years or so. Okay, all right. I was adding a few years. But the point is, this is a wonderful product. But Noah's Water. How many people know about Noah's Water? Oh my gosh. It's right here in California. It's up in the San Francisco area. Noah's Water is 110 milligrams of magnesium in a liter of water. And I think it's got a pH of 8. It's a very high pH water. It's amazing. It puts Kangen water to... But the point is, water is one of the most bioavailable forms of magnesium on the planet. Look up Noah's Water, and you can get it shipped here to the LA area. Yes? Oh my, I didn't know that. That's wonderful. Yeah. If you go to the spring, which is, it's outside of San Francisco. It's called Adobe Springs is the name of the spring, and they ship their water to, or the tankers take it to Noah's bottling company in Modesto, California. And just know that the biggest customer for this water is the country of Japan. Okay? So they figured out what the aging process is, right? Why do you think they're drinking this water? Okay. Oral supplementation is great. Please stop by booth 212 for the Jigsaw product. It's a wonderful product. Right salt, magnesium-rich foods, very, very important. And of course, transdermal magnesium is a wonderful way to infuse magnesium into your body. So have some fun with your doctor with this question. Ask your doctor the next time they want to give you medication, how is this drug that you're about to give me going to reverse the obvious magnesium deficiency? And what's going to happen is that they're going to have a sudden drain of magnesium in their sphincters. because you know more than they do. So what I'm here to tell you is Magellan's ship just came back, and it's berthed right out here in the harbor.